All right, again, welcome to today's Introduction to Systems Manager webinar. We're going to be going over today Cisco's Endpoint Management solution, which is called Systems Manager. A bit about what we'll be covering today. For folks who might not be familiar, we will give a quick introduction to Cisco Meraki. We will jump into Systems Manager after that and talk about what Systems Manager as an endpoint management solution enables for our customers. We will be also going into a live demonstration in our Meraki dashboard, and we'll talk afterwards about some next steps and resources that you have available, including our free trial program. We will have some time at the end of the session for questions and answers, but I do have someone on the team here throughout the webinar handling Q&A, so if you have any questions that come up throughout the presentation, please feel free to throw those into the Q&A box in the WebEx, not the chat, but the Q&A box, and we'll answer those throughout the presentation and pick out some key themes to highlight at the end of the session as well. So first off, we have some good news. If you register to this webinar with your company email address, you may be eligible for free Systems Manager licenses. We are giving up to 20 licenses away for attending this webinar. Those licenses cover a 3-year period and include support. So there are a couple of quick caveats to that. In order to receive or be eligible for the promo licenses, you do need to be an IT professional. You did need to register to this email or to this webinar with your company email address. If you are eligible, please wait for a Meraki rep to contact you. They'll be reaching out shortly to confirm your eligibility and contact details to get you set up with those promo licenses. So that's a great way to start taking advantage of the product and digging into dashboard and playing around in your own environment as soon as possible. A bit about Cisco Meraki to start. For folks who might not be familiar, Cisco acquired Meraki in 2012. Meraki makes up Cisco's cloud networking group. At Cisco, we have 2 basic portfolios for network management. We have our traditional on-premise Cisco Catalyst switching, Aranet wireless, Firepower ASA product line. Meraki and the Cloud Networking Group makes up our cloud-managed access points, security appliances, switches, our endpoint management solution, such as Systems Manager that we'll be covering today. We also have some cloud-managed security cameras and a cloud-managed application or SaaS performance monitoring product called Meraki Insight. All of these products are part of the Meraki product portfolio and are managed through one Meraki dashboard. Our mission is really around creating products that help simplify IT management within your organization. At Meraki, we have over 250 unique customers. We have over 3.5 million Meraki network devices online. In that stat, we're talking about some of our hardware, our access points, and our switches and our security appliances. We do have over 5.5 million active Meraki dashboard users and close to, fast approaching 11 million, over 10 million devices managed by Systems Manager on our Meraki dashboard as well. So in that number, we're talking about endpoint devices such as laptops, mobile devices, phones, tablets, things like that. Digging into our endpoint management solution, Systems Manager. As a high-level overview, this is the endpoint management solution available from Cisco. We are the only endpoint management product within all of Cisco's product lines. We do support iOS devices, Android, Windows, MacBooks, and Chrome OS, particularly in the enterprise space. We have some native network integration that we'll talk about throughout the presentation. So if you are a Cisco Meraki user, there are some really cool integrations you can take advantage of between Systems Manager on the endpoint management side, back through your network, your MR, your access point, or security appliance management. I do want to point out, and I'll say this a couple of times just to make sure, Systems Manager does not require any existing Meraki gear in your environment to run. It can be a completely standalone product. So if you don't have any existing Cisco or Meraki networking gear or any gear at all in your environment, that's totally fine. Systems Manager can run perfectly well as a standalone product, but there are some cool integrations there that we'll talk about and showcase in Dashboard. Systems Manager is also a cloud-only product. There is no on-prem software to host in your environment. It's all pushed through through the Meraki cloud. And when we're talking about endpoint management solutions, there's a lot of different things that endpoint management, or you might have heard the term mobile device management, MDM, or unified endpoint management, UEM, even enterprise mobility management, EMM. There's a lot of different things that those kinds of products can enable in the market today. When we're talking about Systems Manager as an endpoint management solution, there are a lot of features that we'll demonstrate and talk about throughout the presentation. Those features tend to fall in 3 different areas: in provisioning devices, monitoring devices, and securing devices. So these are the 3 areas that we've really built Systems Manager's features and functionality to be able to address. On the provisioning side, what we're talking about there is using Systems Manager to fully set up a device with the Wi-Fi profiles, VPN profiles, email access and configuration, the applications, both store applications and custom applications that the device needs, and even pre-configure the device with any custom restrictions or configurations to do things like maybe limit point-of-sale devices to only show a certain set of apps to the end user, or lock student devices, turn off Bluetooth, block the App Store, any custom configurations you need on a given device. When we're talking about using Systems Manager to monitor devices, Systems Manager basically enables our customers to have a global view into all installed devices within an environment, be able to audit the applications and software on those devices, and track their compliance with different security profiles or security compliance measurements. You can also use Systems Manager to track lost or stolen devices and troubleshoot those devices remotely. When we're talking about securing devices, this is a really big area for a lot of our customers. Systems Manager is a really powerful tool to use to recover or wipe missing devices. That wipe or factory reset or erasing on devices being a really key to helping customers maintain compliance with different PCI or HIPAA, SIPA regulations. There are also some key Cisco Meraki networking integrations that help add some holistic or end-to-end security from the endpoint through the network that we can talk about. And Systems Manager can certainly be set up to enforce conditional network and data access. So making sure that when a device does have access to company or organizational data or email accounts, applications, or to the company Wi-Fi or network, that those devices have been checked and verified by Systems Manager to have some basic layer of security, whether that's passcodes present or encryption status or whatever that might be for your given organization. So these are the 3 buckets that we're going to talk about today in terms of what Systems Manager can do in providing that tool for provisioning, monitoring, and securing endpoint devices. And if you're familiar with different solutions in the endpoint management space, here are some key differentiators that Systems Manager brings to the market. Certainly, we're a huge fans here at Meraki of our cloud dashboard across all of our different products. So this easy-to-use cloud dashboard means that there are no hosting requirements for Systems Manager within your organization. There is certainly no installation or setup cost to get started. And really importantly, there's no downtime for updates as well. So when we push out updates and changes and new features to the Systems Manager dashboard, those are automatically updated in your cloud dashboard as well. There's no need to download that update and install that on a hosted software internally. Our support and licensing model is also pretty radically different from those that we've seen in the market. So that means, of course, no setup fees. We don't have a tiered licensing model. So every license grants access to our latest and greatest feature set, which includes our current feature set in full, as well as any future features that we develop, are automatically pushed to all of our licensed users. We never go back to our customers and ask for additional licensing or additional money for additional features. Those licenses are also transferable between devices and even device types. So as your environment changes year to year, all you need to worry about is having one license per device, and you can move those licenses around to different devices or different device types as that base might change. We also support multiple platforms, so certainly iOS devices, MacBooks, Android, Windows, and even Chrome on the enterprise side. And we do have some native network integration, which we'll talk about. We've actually been recognized by Gartner as the only MDM or Enterprise Mobility Management, Endpoint Management solution in the market with this native integration with our switching, our wireless, and our security networks. So again, you don't need to have existing Meraki in your environment to run Systems Manager. It can be completely standalone, but this is a really compelling piece to look at the rest of the Meraki portfolio. If you are familiar with Cisco Meraki, you might have heard already about our Cisco Apple partnership. Cisco has partnered with Apple a couple of years ago now, and on the wireless side, we've seen some of the major improvements come out around what's called fast lane policies for Apple devices. So basically, if you're managing Apple devices in your environment, it might be helpful to know that because of this Cisco Apple partnership, we've built both Cisco and Meraki access points to set up quality of service rules for applications on Apple devices so that those applications will run faster on Cisco or Meraki wireless networks than on any other networks in the world. So that's all Apple devices, iOS, and MacBook. It's definitely a reason to take a look at both Cisco and Meraki in this space. On the endpoint management side, we've also, through the partnership, worked really closely with the Cisco and the Apple teams on something called the Cisco Security Connector application. So this is a really cool new application for supervised iOS devices that integrates Cisco's Umbrella for Endpoints product, formerly OpenDNS, and the Cisco Clarity product, which is a rebranding of the Cisco AMP for Endpoints or Advanced Malware Protection for Endpoints on iOS devices. This is the only way to get these two products, Umbrella and AMP or Clarity, on iOS devices. If you are managing iOS devices in your environment, and particularly supervised devices, we'll talk a bit more about what that means when we look over deployment considerations. This is a great way to get some on and off network tools for protecting those devices against phishing attacks, DNS level protection, as well as advanced malware protection, so being able to review incidents across devices and identify those devices that might be at risk. Whether or not you were eligible for the promo licenses coming out of this webinar, I wanted to make sure folks are aware we also have a free trial program that is supported across all of our different customer groups. Basically what this is it's a risk-free program that offers you full support and access to a dedicated subject matter expert while trialing or setting up the product or running a proof of concept of Systems Manager. Throughout the trial program, you have access to our full documentation guides, our complete feature set, and again, that expert assistance in onboarding and getting to know the product. It's a great way to get started and get some feedback on best practices and things to consider before you might pull the trigger on purchasing Systems Manager. So if you're interested in running a proof of concept or a trial and would like this additional support, I would definitely reach out to your Meraki rep to get started. Following a purchase, we also have recently launched this post-purchase training program. This is eligible for all customers and purchases of 200 Systems Manager licenses as of March 1st of this year, 2018. It includes a 2 or a 4-hour call depending on the purchase threshold or how many licenses that you purchased. The call itself is supported by a Systems Manager expert trainer, so they'll be able to walk through deployment considerations and best practices for your given environment and deployment. If you have purchased at least 200 licenses in one order after March 1st, 2018, someone should be reaching out to you within 30 days. If you want to learn more about this program, again, reach out to your Meraki sales rep, please. It's a great way to make sure you're getting off on the right foot and getting the training and guidance and background you need on Systems Manager before you start diving into the actual onboarding. So before we jump into the demo, I wanted to talk a bit about some deployment considerations for both Apple and in particular Android deployments. If you are managing fleets of devices, be they either Apple devices or Android devices, there are a couple deployment programs that we definitely recommend you take a look at before getting started. On the Apple side, the program is called the Device Enrollment Program, which is really closely linked with the Apple School Manager program for K-12 environments. These programs are totally free within Apple. They're basically a way to set up an organizational ownership account for the fleet of devices that you're managing. Having this kind of account, this sort of back-end inventory account with Apple, will help you unlock an entirely new set of features and functionality with any endpoint management solution. It's really becoming the best practice for deploying and managing Apple devices in any with any MDM or EMM or endpoint management solution and in any environment. So it's definitely something to look into before getting started. The tool for advanced control and seamless enrollment through the DEP program or the Device Enrollment Program with Apple is called supervision. So you'll hear that term come up a lot in the presentation, and especially in dashboard you will see that in a few different places. On the Android side, the comparable program is called Android Enterprise. It was formerly called Android for Work, so you might know it as that. And the sort of similar mode for advanced control and onboarding and visibility functionality is called Device Owner Mode. So you'll see that in dashboard, and you'll see some of the features and functionality that we talk about on the Android side are mainly tied to these programs, this Android Enterprise program and this Device Owner Mode. We do have full guides and videos for setting up these programs and integrating them with Systems Manager on our documentation site, so they're definitely things to take a look at. One thing I also wanted to point out on the Apple side is there have been recent changes in the last year or so to the Device Enrollment Program, which I'll call DEP moving forward in this session, such that any iOS device that can run iOS 11 can be added to DEP regardless of how it was purchased. This has been a huge change for a lot of our customers who may have previously purchased iPads or iOS devices prior to this in a way that Apple would not allow those devices to be added to DEP. Those requirements have changed. If this was previously a blocker for you, it's definitely time to take another look at the DEP program. Apple School Manager, we won't talk too much about this in the dashboard today. We do have an on-demand webinar that goes over Apple School Manager, Apple Classroom, and a lot of the K-12 specific features that's posted on our Systems Manager page on the Meraki website. So I definitely recommend checking that out if you want to dive deeper into any K-12 specific features. But I did want to point out Apple Classroom and Apple School Manager being really key tools to offer in-class instruction, being able to basically see all devices in the class, integrate with school information systems, and giving teachers a tool to remotely view the screens of iPads or lock devices in a single app mode, lock devices on a blank screen, a lot of different tools that are available and enabled through endpoint management solutions like Systems Manager. And the last thing we'll talk about before we jump into a demo here is the app licensing programs on the Apple and the Google side. So the device enrollment programs that we talked about, DEP with Apple and Android Enterprise, focus on enrolling device types and managing those fleets of devices. I also wanted to point out that we are fully integrated with the volume purchase program, which is used for managing licenses on Apple applications, and the Google Play Store for managing application licensing across Android devices. So using these programs in tandem allow you to do things like push free and paid apps to devices silently, so not requiring user IDs or Apple IDs on those devices. They're great tools for helping you migrate from an Apple ID management where you have multiple Apple IDs across different devices to this sort of silent and seamless app pushing model. These are also great tools for recovering and reinstalling or deleting managed applications or managing your licensing in one place on the Systems Manager dashboard. So things to consider before you jump into a deployment and things to be aware of when we're talking about features and functionality in dashboard, how they might be tied to these programs. So now I'm going to go ahead and jump into a demonstration on our Meraki dashboard. I'm actually going to start here in our sample corporate dashboard here, just to show this is some of the sample networks that we demonstrate or that we run demos on across Meraki. We have over 1.6 million Meraki active networks worldwide at this point, so we're definitely growing fast within Cisco. I'm going to jump into our Meraki corporate instance of Systems Manager here. We are currently using this in-house today to manage over 3,000 different devices across our different offices and locations and teleworker group. I'm actually going to demo today from a sample dashboard here with some sample data to protect some of the privacy of our corporate users. I'm going to go ahead and log in here on a different demo dashboard with some sample data and devices here. To show you a bit about what we're seeing here on the left. So I'm in a Meraki dashboard for folks who are not familiar. On the left-hand toolbar here, you can see this particular dashboard has some of our wireless access points set up, has some of our cloud-controlled switches and our security appliance, so our MR, our MS, and our MX line. These are all in the same dashboard in this particular case. So to explain a little bit about what you're seeing there, those are additional product lines we're seeing on the toolbar. Again, you do not need to have any existing Meraki gear or networking products to run Systems Manager. But if you do have some in your environment, Systems Manager can run in the exact same dashboard as those other products today. And you can set up delegated access rules so that if there are folks on your team who should only have access to the device management side, to Systems Manager, and not to your wireless access point management, for example, you can set up that kind of delegated or gated access. So really quickly, I'm going to go through this demo today, and I wanted to remind folks that throughout the demonstration, I'll be talking about wider concepts in Systems Manager and how it's used for managing endpoints. This is not meant to be a tutorial. If you do want to dig into any particular features or flows deeper, I would definitely recommend reaching out to your Meraki rep to learn more. We also have a ton of extra videos and guides on our documentation.meraki.com website. So those are other tools to look at if you want to dig a little bit deeper. At a very high level, I'm going to start today by talking about how to get devices into Systems Manager by going to our Add Devices page. You can see here there are a number of different ways to add devices depending on the device type to Systems Manager. So we're talking about actually enrolling devices into Systems Manager so that we can manage them through this cloud dashboard. If you are managing iOS devices, MacBook, or Android devices, you might take advantage of the Android Enterprise or the DEP program with Apple to create more of a seamless device enrollment program here. And particularly with DEP, if you have the device enrollment program with Apple, you can link it to Systems Manager so that out of the box, these devices will automatically connect and enroll themselves in Systems Manager and apply any settings or profiles or applications, or any of the things that we're going to go through today will be automatically installed and running on those devices a true zero-touch provisioning method. If we're talking more about maybe BYOD environments, there are a lot of different options per device type that you have to get started. You can point your users to the m.meraki.com website and offer a unique network ID. This is a network ID just for our sample data, our sample demo organization here. There also are QR codes you can point your users to, or template email links you can send out to help people get started. If you are running a Meraki wireless network as well, we'll talk a bit about how to set up your Meraki wireless access points to authenticate using Systems Manager. So that is an option particularly used for BYOD environments we've seen, where folks will set up their SSIDs to authenticate using Systems Manager. They'll direct all of their users through the SSID configuration page to a splash page to download and install Systems Manager. It's a really easy way to drive that. So moving from the Add Devices page, once we do have devices enrolled in Systems Manager, we'll go to our main devices or clients page here. Here we're seeing a list of all the different devices that we have enrolled and are managing in Systems Manager. You can see the different device types here, the name of the device, model, serial number. If you're familiar with Meraki, this will be very familiar as a flex table where you can add or remove columns as you see fit to make this as impactful as you need it to be for a first glance, or to pull a report and save it as a CSV file, which is another option here at the top as well. So I can add phone numbers, DEP information, disk space used. I also have some custom security checks that Systems Manager runs on these devices, some of the out-of-the-box ones looking for things like firewall encryption and things like that, and passcode locks. We also have some custom security checks that we can run, and we'll talk in a minute about how to set those up, things that might be checking for what we consider to be BYOD compliant, for example. I can pull those in as columns in this view. And I can drag or drop columns as I see fit. So if I want to pull over operating system versions or delete any of these columns, it's really easy to do and really flexible management there. We like to think about this page as a live inventory tool for you to see all of the different devices with access to either your company network or company email or data in one place. If you are familiar with Meraki, you will be somewhat familiar, I'm sure, with how we use tags across all of our devices. Tags are a really easy way to create any number of groups or subgroups across devices to differentiate access or better organize, or just have a cleaner view of all the different devices and different groups across your Systems Manager dashboard. We actually have a page dedicated to this that I'll jump into now to show a bit more about what I mean here. So here are all the different tags that we've currently set up. We've had these grouped out by tags applied by device type, some static tags or groups that we've applied to devices, some security policy tags, tags based on location of the device or geofencing. We even have some devices that are set on different schedules, so we have some tags associated for that. And we have a sample owner tag here. Owner tags are a great way to integrate things like Active Directory or any kind of directory service or set of users and organizational units and groups that you currently are managing. You can actually pull and integrate those into Systems Manager to automatically apply tags to devices that are relevant for your users. So for example, if you're using Active Directory and you already have organizational units set up with different work groups, things like maybe engineering or support or admin or even branch location type groups, you can pull those into Systems Manager and automatically assign those as tags to devices. So looking into any one of these tags, for example, I might look at a sample tag I've made here or maybe a staff tag we have. If we look at a different tag, we're seeing the devices in scope for that tag. We're seeing any applications or profiles associated with the tag. So we might have profiles that grant different Wi-Fi networks, for example, or VPN privileges, even different device configurations associated by that group, any applications associated with the tag. It's a really easy way to see how we're managing data and access across different groups and make changes to that on the fly. We looked at security policy tags here. Let me talk to you a little bit more about what that means. Here are all the different security policies that we're running on this Systems Manager demo network. So for example, we have a security policy around BYOD, bring your own device, compliant devices. Here, if I select this tag, it's going to show me all of the different devices that are compliant with this particular policy. It's going to show me what the policy is checking for. And if I have any apps or profiles assigned to this particular policy, it's going to show me what those are as well. So if I have Wi-Fi networks that I'm only granting to compliant devices, they'll show up here. Same thing with applications. Let me go ahead and add a new security policy just to show you what that process is like and what's possible. So if I go to security policy tag here, I can choose a security policy for a specific device type if I'd like, or I can choose this advanced option to show what's possible across all device types. For example, on the BYOD side, if we're managing folks' personal devices using Systems Manager, we could set up a BYOD security policy that checks macOS devices for disk encryption. You can see the platform here on the left and the set of criteria we're checking for on the right here. We could check Windows devices for antivirus or anti-spyware. All desktops we can check for screen locks, maybe logins, firewalls, any mandatory running apps. On iOS or mobile devices, we could check for passcode locks, the passcode lock being the thing that will encrypt that mobile device. We can also check to see if those devices are jailbroken or rooted. We can also use Systems Manager in this way to check for cellular data usage across devices. So if we want to check and have some alerting around when devices pass a certain cellular data usage threshold, we can certainly do that here, and we can custom set both the threshold and the time period. So if it's 5 gigs a month or 3 gigs a week, whatever that might be, whatever we want to receive alerting on, we can certainly do that here. We can also use security policies to check for blacklisted or whitelisted applications, mandatory applications on devices, or minimum operating system versions. That's a really key one here, especially with the last few rounds of ransomware attacks we've seen. Using Systems Manager to check for minimum operating system versions, particularly on Windows or macOS devices, has been really helpful for a lot of our customers. When you are setting up a security policy like this, you aren't forcing this set of criteria to be true necessarily on an end device. You're basically setting up Systems Manager to scan devices to see if a device is compliant or violating with this check. Systems Manager will automatically scan all devices every 15 minutes to see if this criteria is met or these checkboxes are true or not on an end device. You can actually use our API to change that time period if you need Systems Manager to check devices more frequently or less frequently for this or any other set of criteria. And then once Systems Manager runs these kinds of checks, you have an option, or you have a lot of options of what you'd like to do with that information. You can set up dashboard to simply send you an alert, maybe a daily alert of any violating devices with this security policy. Or you can, as you'll see, you can also tie your apps access, your email, or your data or Wi-Fi VPN access to only compliant devices. So in that case, you're scanning devices to make sure that there's a minimum operating system version, maybe for your Windows devices. And if a device fails that check, if it has an older version of an operating system installed, a Wi-Fi profile or maybe certain applications will be automatically removed from the device. So a lot of tools there to help you with automatic, very responsive data and network security. So that's sort of scratching the surface there on security policies. We've talked a little bit so far about enrolling devices in Systems Manager. We've talked about using tags to group your devices and integrating maybe tools like Active Directory to pull in those automatic groups and delegating access that way. Talked about using Systems Manager to scan devices for security compliance metrics and set up alerts around that. Now I'm going to jump into an individual device view here to show you a bit about what Systems Manager can see on an end device. I've clicked into an iPad, for example. Here I'm seeing the name of the device, model information, serial number, all of that inventory information that Systems Manager is automatically going to pull from the device. I also see any tags on the device, the charge of the device, operating system version, encryption status and whether a passcode is present. I see some of the custom security policies that we have set up and the device and whether the device is compliant or not with those particular policies. I also see location information on the device here on the right. And Systems Manager uses a number of different tools to grab location information. If this is a device with GPS technology built in, like an iPad is, for example, we can use the GPS technology on that end device to grab that location. If not, there's a few other checks that we can make. The next best or next most accurate approximation of location is determined through connectivity to Meraki access points. So if you do have Meraki access points in your environment, you can actually use that to track your devices, and including those that do not have any GPS technology, of course. Outside of that, Systems Manager is using the IP address of the telco or the service provider to determine location. We also have these live tools across devices that we can use. These are going to change depending on the device type that we have, that we're looking at. For mobile devices, between iOS and Android, the tools are pretty similar. Both Google Android and Apple enable pretty similar functionalities across their MDM APIs for this. So across all of our devices, you will be able to factory reset a device using this erase command. You'll also be able to selectively wipe a device or just erase the things related to Systems Manager from that device. So erasing everything in the secure container, apps, email, Wi-Fi access, things like that, but leaving all of the personal apps on the device. You also have a tool to lock the device and clear a passcode, particularly for iOS devices. And for iOS in particular, if you are using the device enrollment program with Apple, you have this option for activation lock bypass. What this does is if the user is signed into any iCloud or iTunes account and you're attempting to erase the device or basically reclaim it maybe after an employee is left, this allows you to bypass that screen that Apple throws up to basically prompt you to enter in those user iCloud account credentials, which you might not have if the user is left. So another great tool if you are using the device enrollment program in tandem with an endpoint management with Systems Manager. You have tools here to manage the AirPlay settings, reboot the device or shut it down. Again, this can be done remotely through the cloud to help your end users as they might be having trouble with that device. You can send notifications to all device types. For mobile devices, that'll show up as a banner notification. It's really hard to ignore. For your laptop devices, Mac and Windows, this will show up like a system notification. It's a really powerful tool, and you can send it to one device like we're showing here or to a group or a tag of devices. You also have tools to manage single app mode, which is basically locking a device in one application. You can push out operating system updates to DEP enrolled Apple devices, so iOS and macOS. And you also have this tool for loss mode, which is really powerful in particular for iOS devices. This is a great asset management tool that does require that DEP account with Apple as well as Systems Manager. Basically, if you ever hear a device go or suspect a device has gone lost or missing, you can put it in loss mode. It'll lock it on the home screen. It'll you have a custom message. You can put in this device has been reported lost or stolen and a phone number you can enter. You can even play a sound to locate the device if it's maybe just lost in the building or the warehouse or something to help you locate it. The nice thing about loss mode is it locks the device on that home screen, so if it is stolen, an end user can't click out of that or even power off the device. It also wakes location services, so throughout the time that the device is in lost mode and on, has enough battery charge to be running and connecting to the cloud, it's sending Systems Manager updated location information. You can also modify or lock Bluetooth settings here, and just looking at what we can see on an individual device side, we see the installed profiles on the device and the apps on the device as well. So two quick things I'm going to jump into. From here, we're going to look at actually setting some of these custom profiles and setting some of these custom apps really quickly. So on this profiles page, we're seeing all the different configuration profiles we've applied to devices in this demo organization. I'm going to add a new one here to show you what's possible from scratch. Here's basically the full list of things we're able to pre-configure on devices. You'll see the supported device type alongside each of these categories here in the list. I could select a given device type here at the top to only show those profiles or those groups of configuration settings that apply to a given device type. I'm going to select all of them here just for a high view or an overall view across device types. We can apply different custom restrictions. These are things like blocking the camera or the app store, locking proxies or content filters, a lot of different tools here for showing or hiding certain applications across different device types. We can set custom passcode policies, age, length, complexity rules for passcodes on those devices. We can push out certificates to devices, apply Wi-Fi settings. Want to note here that Systems Manager actually has a built-in certificate infrastructure for pushing out certs for Wi-Fi networks. So that's a really cool way to take advantage of Systems Manager to easily hand out ETLS certificates for Wi-Fi networks as well. You can also set privacy rules if you do not wish for Systems Manager to be tracking location across devices. You can configure VPN settings, AirPlay, AirPrint, any managed app configuration settings. These are things like pre-configuring Dropbox or AnyConnect or even Safari with the right bookmarks. There's a really fast-growing managed app configuration community within Android and Apple that support these types of settings. So basically helping you pre-configure those applications on users' devices before handing them off. You can also, of course, configure email accounts on iOS and Android devices. That can be configured through the native mail client on that device, if that's how you'd like to do that. You can also use Systems Manager to push out a separate mail client if you would like that to be separate from the native mail application on the device. It's totally up to you. You can push out content through Backpack or preload the device with web clips. A lot of different tools here to get really granular. We mentioned Cisco Security Connector earlier. Those integrate the Cisco Umbrella and the Cisco Clarity, which is another name for the AMP for Endpoints product within Cisco. If you were running that product or running that application on your iOS devices, you could see those dashboards here as well. A lot of different tools here to customize the device as well with different dashboards or Apple School Manager configurations. Per app VPN rules to automatically launch VPN if a user does certain things on the device, even set the home screen layout, file vault settings on MacBooks. So I'm just reading through here, and it's a very long list allowing you to really make sure that the devices that you're managing are configured exactly the way that you'd like before handing those off to users, or allowing you to make custom configuration changes throughout the duration of your deployment. So if you need to make changes to these settings, you can certainly do that while devices are in users' hands and help you adapt to maybe changing requirements in your environment. So that's a very, very high-level view of what we can do with security policies. The one thing I want to point out before we jump into application management really quickly is when we are sending out these or setting up these configuration settings on devices, we can create any number of profiles here and assign them to different device types using tags like we talked about earlier. So we could set up different Wi-Fi networks and automatically assign them to different devices by device type or by policy like we talked about earlier. So maybe compliant with our BYOD policy, for example, or any user tags we have, maybe a Cisco user tag, Active Directory tags, or any of the static tags that we've set up as groups. So it's really easy to use this to differentiate access, maybe give some devices different configurations or restrictions, or access to different Wi-Fi networks or VPN settings and things like that. So just scratching the surface there on what you can do to pre-configure devices, the next thing I'm going to jump into before we hit on some questions will be our application management page. So here I'm looking at the part of dashboard that we use in Systems Manager to push out applications to devices. I'm seeing all the different applications we've pushed out in this demo organization, and the applications by device type here are listed, those that are in the store versus those that are custom applications, their install percentage, how many devices they've actually been installed on, and the scope. Are we pushing these to all devices or devices with certain tags, for example? This is another flex table. We're really big on flex tables throughout dashboard, so you can add or remove columns as you see fit to better manage your applications across devices or your view of those applications on this page in dashboard. One thing to note, we are integrated with the iOS App Store and the macOS App Store, as well as the Google Play Store. So if you need to push out any store applications, we're integrated with those stores. We don't maintain a separate Systems Manager app catalog or app store. So when you are pushing out applications that are in the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, Systems Manager is making a direct call to those stores to grab the latest version of those applications and push them out and install them on the devices you're managing. That means that if there's ever an update to an application that you're using, like Dropbox, for example, there's no downtime for you waiting for Systems Manager to update and republish that app in a separate catalog. We don't have a separate catalog, so that means that you can make that change as soon as it's available in the Apple or the Android or the Google Play Store. It's been a really key selling point for a lot of our customers that have mission-critical applications that are in those stores that they want to update as soon as updates are available. You also have the option on the iOS side when you're pushing out an app to keep an app up to date so that if there is an app update available, it's automatically installed on the end user's device. You can also set scheduling around that so that the update would only be installed after work hours or after school hours, however you want to manage that. Again, we're tied to the licensing programs available through the Google Play Store as well as the Apple Volume Purchasing Program or VPP program. If you're moving to Systems Manager from another solution, you can also import applications directly from your VPP account, so make that really easy as well. Our trial support team is also very well versed in helping customers with migration plans from one solution to another, so it's another thing to take advantage of. I also want to mention you can use Systems Manager to push out custom applications as well. We give you 3 gigs of installer files to host that custom application on the Meraki cloud if you so wish, or you can point Systems Manager to a URL to grab that custom enterprise app and install it on your end user's devices. For those apps that are maybe optional but not mandatory for your users, we also have a self-service portal that allows you to basically queue up applications for the end user to select and download if that's how you'd like to do that as well. So a lot of different tools here to help you make sure that the right apps are on your devices, that they're up to date, that they are tied to the right licensing programs, and to the right users using tags or to scope that deployment. Looking at an individual app, I'll look at the Cisco Security Connector app, for example, on iOS devices. There's a lot of different tools here, like I said, to make sure that that app is up to date, that it's automatically installed on devices, or by unchecking this, I could queue it up for install in the self-service portal that I might make available to my end users. I can tie it to Systems Manager with this remove with MDM. So if Systems Manager is removed from the device, this application will be uninstalled with it. And I can use the tags that we mentioned earlier to only push this application to certain devices if that makes sense for this particular application or our environment. We can also tie applications to VPP, like I was talking about with the Apple Volume Purchasing Program, to make sure that those applications are pushed out silently using what's called device assignment. If you're currently managing Apple IDs associated with applications, that can be a big nightmare for our customers, so I definitely recommend reaching out to a Meraki rep to talk more about moving to a more seamless or silent app deployment model with VPP and Apple's DEP program in Systems Manager. So it's definitely a lot to throw at folks to start, but at a very high level, what we've looked at so far has been using Systems Manager as a live inventory tool. We dug into what Systems Manager can see on an individual client device. We talked about using tags to group devices. We talked about pushing out or setting up security policies to scan devices for different sets of criteria to make sure that they're compliant, and setting up alerts around when devices are violating those policies. We talked about using Systems Manager to set up configuration settings, including Wi-Fi, email, VPN, and maybe custom restrictions on those end devices. We also talked about using Systems Manager to push out applications on devices, using the self-service portal and things like that. We've really just scratched the surface here today, but I'm going to pause for a second here to jump into a couple of Q&A questions. So I'm going to go on mute for 1 second. Okay, thanks to everyone for entering in such really great questions throughout the presentation. Scanning over what looks like have been common themes or maybe have not been answered yet, there's a question around supervision and DEP in dashboard. You certainly do not need to have Apple's device enrollment program or need to supervise your devices or use that supervision to run Systems Manager. You probably wouldn't, in particular in a BYOD environment or where you were managing Systems Manager on folks' personal devices. It's a great tool if you do have organizational or organization-owned Apple devices that you're managing. It's something to look into, but it's certainly not a requirement for Systems Manager. Having that unlocks a lot of functionality and unlocks a lot of visibility and out-of-the-box provisioning and things like that, but there are definitely cases where it doesn't make sense. So it's certainly not a requirement. I'd reach out to a Meraki rep to talk through that a bit further. Another question came up around using Systems Manager to encrypt devices. You can force encryption on iOS, Android, and Mac devices currently. Stay tuned on the Windows side. And that forcing of encryption, particularly with with MacBook devices, does require that DEP enrollment, but you can manage file vault and even cache personal recovery keys or institutional recovery keys within dashboard in Systems Manager. We also had a question about legacy. If there are folks currently using our legacy platform within Systems Manager, we actually have not added any features to the legacy platform for over 3 years now, since 2015. So there are a lot of things that you might be seeing here in this presentation that are totally new. Again, I'd say reach out to your Meraki rep to really dive into the differences there between that previously offered platform that's no longer offered for other folks on the call today wondering what I'm talking about. And legacy users can also reach out to their Meraki reps to get a trial of the paid version. The paid version that we're demoing today is the only version currently available to new customers. There's some other questions around some feature comparisons and things that have come up. For deeper questions outside I would certainly recommend reaching out to your Meraki rep to learn more and maybe get started with a trial. There's also a lot of additional videos and information on our documentation.meraki.com website. So there's a lot of tools there to learn more. Before we jump off today, I wanted to highlight a few quick things in terms of next steps that might make your next set of questions a little bit, or answer your next set of questions. To go over our licensing program again, Systems Manager is licensed on a per device basis. You need 1 license per device to run Systems Manager. That gets you access to Dashboard as well as our 24/7 enterprise phone and support team. We don't offshore or contract that at Meraki, so they're all in-house Merakians manning those support email and phone lines. Licenses are also transferable between devices and device types, and that license gives you access to our complete feature set as well as our future features. So any ongoing updates are automatically added to all of our paid users. In this way, you can really think about the Cisco Meraki Systems Manager license as representing the total cost of ownership for your endpoint management solution. A few things to look at if you have more questions. Certainly reach out to your Meraki rep to learn more, to dig into any of these particular areas in Dashboard. We really just scratched the surface on some pretty major topics in endpoint management today. But we do have a few things we wanted to call out. We recently received this customer recognition through the Gartner Peer Insights Customer's Choice platform. That's a totally free platform. We definitely recommend folks take a look. It's a place where customers vet and offer reviews of different products. We were one of only 3 endpoint management solutions to receive this distinction this year. So we hope you take a look and see what others are saying about the product. We, of course, have our trial program, and we include our onboarding and assistance in that free trial program. It's a great way to get free training and best practice consulting around Systems Manager before pulling the triggers. So we hope you'll take advantage of that. And we do have a growing community forum across all of our Meraki products. Our endpoint management community page in particular is particularly active and thriving. So I'd point you there as well to learn more about the product and how your peers are using it. People are posting tips and tutorials and getting questions and feedback from others in different industries across the product. So it's another place to take a look. With that, I want to thank everyone for joining. If you have any other questions, we hope we'll hear from you. But otherwise, thanks so much for joining, and we hope you learned a lot about Systems Manager, our endpoint management solution. Thank you.